As you work to advance your professional goals, you will encounter resistance. Where that resistance comes from and how to overcome it is the subject of today's episode. Thanks for tuning in. The Next Level is a video series for ambitious professionals and business owners. In these videos, you'll learn practical steps that you can take today to advance your professional goals. My name is Ari M. Weinstein. You can find me at rew.coach and learn more about me on LinkedIn, where I invite you to connect with me. As you work to advance your professional goals and to grow your business, you're going to encounter resistance. Understanding where that resistance comes from can be helpful to overcoming it. Depending on the source of the resistance, the techniques and methods you use to overcome it will vary. So what are the four main sources of resistance? They're represented by these four quadrants. This is known as the All Quadrants, All Levels model, and it's by Ken Wilber, a philosopher and writer. Wilber suggests that this model, these four quadrants, can be used to explain or categorize every domain of human experience. So let's look at the model as a whole, and then we'll discuss each quadrant and how resistance from each quadrant can be overcome. The top two quadrants are individual. Think of them as concerning you, whereas the bottom two are collective. Think of those as representing everyone else. The left two quadrants are interior or private or inward facing, and the right two quadrants are exterior or public facing. In each quadrant, we have words that represent examples of things that belong in each of those quadrants. And finally, in the center of each quadrant, we have pronouns used to address those domains. Wilber notes that the fact that we have these four different pronouns is evidence of these four quadrants being real things that are separate and distinct from one another, at least to a degree. For the purposes of this video, we're not going to focus on the pronouns. The individual interior quadrant encompasses your inner life, your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, and your feelings. And that's the first source from which you will encounter resistance. When you have doubts, when you have worries, or when you just don't feel good for any reason, that causes resistance in your efforts to advance your professional goals. How can you overcome resistance from this very private domain, this quadrant? We talked about this in episode 4 of The Next Level. It's all about self-reflection. Stop and notice what your thoughts are when you wake up in the morning or when you have a spare moment and you're starting to encounter resistance to doing something. What are you thinking about? You may be having negative thoughts or bad feelings. The techniques for dealing with this source of resistance, as well as all the other sources, are numerous and could each take an entire video all by themselves. So let's just focus on one technique you can use, and that is to notice what you're noticing, to notice your own thoughts. An important principle to understand is that whatever you focus on becomes bigger. So if you focus on the negative and on the thoughts that are making you feel bad or stopping you from taking action, those thoughts become bigger. Instead, focus on the positive. For example, instead of focusing on where you want to go and how distant that outcome seems, focus on how far you've come, on what you've accomplished so far. Shifting your focus can help you overcome resistance from your individual interior. The next domain from which you'll encounter resistance is the individual exterior. That includes your habits, your behaviors, your choices, and your actions. In other words, things that you do that are observable by others, even if there's nobody around. So it's the public expression or the exterior expression of your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. The key here is to establish good habits. Start taking those steps towards your professional goals each and every day. Establishing that pattern can help you change your current habits and your existing behaviors and start moving you closer to your goals. The third source of resistance is the interior collective quadrant. This includes everyone in your inner circle, your family, your friends, your colleagues. The people that share culture with you and share your values might resist your efforts to change, even though you're working on a positive change, on growing your business or growing your career. The reason for this resistance is that groups try to protect the status quo. They fear that if you change, you might leave the group or might change the culture or the dynamics within the group. There are two things that you can do to overcome resistance from this quadrant. First, you need to persevere. Tune out some of the resistance that you hear from your family and friends to what you yourself are doing. Another way to overcome this resistance is to seek out new groups, new inner circles. In other words, a new interior collective. Groups and people who are aligned with what you're trying to do and who can be excited as you are about the changes you're trying to make. So, for example, if you're expanding your business into a new market, join some industry groups in that market. Start to get to know those people. Those will form your new inner circle and they'll support you. The final source of resistance is the rest of the world. Society, the economy, the government. These are sources that can be very difficult to address. In some cases, there's not much you can do. For example, if laws or regulations prohibit certain actions that would help you with your professional growth, there's not much you can do. You'd be taking a huge risk breaking the law or breaking regulations in order to advance your career or your profession in that way. These sources of resistance can be overcome, but it can be very difficult, very challenging. One technique that works is to connect. Find people in this domain, people you have not yet met, groups that you are not currently part of, and bring them into your circle. Connect with them, meet them, get to know them. When you find common ground, the people and groups in this exterior collective domain can move from this domain to the interior collective domain. In other words, they can become part of your circles. And by establishing that initial trust in those connections, you can overcome resistance. Today's action step is to think about the resistance that you're encountering on the road to meeting your professional goals. Create a diagram like this. Just 2 lines intersecting to create 4 quadrants, and write down what sources of resistance you're encountering. Understanding the source of resistance can help you overcome it by using some of the techniques we discussed today. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this video. And what sources of resistance have you encountered that you can help others overcome? Write it in the comments to this video. If you would like to discuss how to overcome resistance with me one-on-one, why not book a free 30-minute coaching session? I'll leave a link to my schedule in the notes to this video, and you can also connect with me on rew.coach, where you can click the free coaching button. In next week's episode, your business writing could be better. Would you like to learn how? We'll talk about that, so stay tuned right here, Thursdays at 10, and thanks for watching.